said earlier when we started the show that we wanted to talk about one of Nigeria's biggest challenge to overcome and how we are going to do that. And that is the challenge of insurgency and terrorism and the general insecurity in the country. And the man who should be able to tell us, you know, the bits that we don't really understand is here in the studio. Major General Chris Olukolade is the Director of Defense Information for the Nigerian Defense Headquarters. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good
morning, Your Excellency.
Good morning. Yes, sir. Very good to see you. General, before you came in, we had started a conversation already about going forward into a new year now. How is the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Armed Forces going to overcome this challenge of insurgency? And is this an insurgency or terrorism?
Thank you very much. I like the last aspect.
It wasn't from me, it was the governor who actually introduced it earlier.
Okay. You asked, is it insurgency or terrorism?
Yes.
If by definition, when people engage in insurgency, there's some, you know, maybe legitimate claim that they are trying to push across and get the attention of government either to negotiate or, you know, see their position. But in contrast to what we are facing, we believe we are facing a situation where people are trying to instill fear in the people and the government and intimidate government to yield to their own ideology. And they are doing this by fear and by trying to instill fear by killing, maiming, and doing all kinds of things that make life uncomfortable for citizens. To that extent, I would say the last one is preferable in defining what we are going through. That is, we are going through terrorism. And the earlier every Nigerian realized that, the better. That we're dealing with people who really don't have a claim that is legitimate. Rather, they want to make life uncomfortable for every Nigerian.
So it's a war. They've declared a war on the Nigerian state.
Clearly.
This is what it is.
This is a war.
Okay, so you are the man who knows how to fight a war. How are we going to fight this war? How are we fighting this war?
Well, initially, the approach had been to see these are fellow citizens, Nigerians, and see it as an internal security operation in the sense that we have some consideration both for them and for the citizens that are equally victims. And that means we must limit the level of force we can release on them in response to the activities they engage in. However, as time went on, and the activities became more vicious, causing more damage to our country, we got to step up our game, and that is what has been incrementally the situation. Up to this moment, our firepower has to be raised up, I mean, upgraded, in the sense that the level of weapons we were using, the isolation that we were using, has to be more discreet and stepped up, considering the fact that they have started imitating what their fellow terrorists in other parts of the world are doing in terms of wanting to have territories under their control.
Raising flag. I'm going to say that this is a conversation, so at any point, any of the gentlemen can come in.
Yeah, I'm okay.
So we can make this a rounded conversation, because the desire is for us to find a solution together. Right, Governor? Mr. Momodu, this is what you want to find. What actually, though, is the truth? There's a lot of story out there, and it's a good thing to clarify, you know, these issues. It's said that the Nigerian Army hasn't got capacity in terms of, you know, equipment and men. You know, is this true? Do we have full capacity?
Well, the capacity in this matter is relative. Relative in the sense that initially we got to engage in this with some conventional training that is our background. That is going after them. When we talk of weapons, weapons are graded. There are weapons that are to be at individual level. Every soldier going to battle is expected to be armed with at least a rifle. And there's nobody in this operation who is not armed with a rifle. There are weapons that are sectional weapons. There are weapons that are at the company level, at battalion level. You don't deploy that to an individual to carry. For instance, machine gun. Machine gun is not for every soldier to be carrying. But the terrorists we are dealing with have no convention. Everybody there can carry the RPG, that is the rocket grenades. everybody can even choose to carry machine guns. So that in itself is one area of contrast that makes it difficult when people are alleging inadequate equipment. But that is not to say that we don't need equipment. We definitely do. Why? For instance, in every war, there is wear and tear. The equipment that we engaged at the beginning of the war gets to a point, starts stopping, or needs replacement. In other words, they cannot go through all that mission from the beginning to the end. To that extent, we will definitely continue to need upgrade of our weapons. Also, I said initially that we got to isolate. Initially, there is a limit to which we could use the Air Force, considering the level of damage the activities can inflict, considering our interest in preserving our nation's infrastructures. Considering also the fact that citizens must be protected, we must limit how far we can use some of these weapons. Now, for the terrorists, they don't have such considerations. Their own is to do as much damage as possible. But we cannot join them in doing damage to our people. Ours is to respond and contain them as effectively as we can.
What is the level of intelligence? Because weapons can be one thing, but you cannot even deploy those weapons without adequate intelligence. So how would you say intelligence has fared in this battle against terrorism?
We'll definitely keep needing improvement. And the much I can say at this moment is, between when this operation started and now, there has been a lot of improvement in the input of intelligence. But the intelligence that we may not be having the best, because no matter your gadgets, no matter whatever you have to deploy in battle, you need what we call human intelligence. That is what you can get from citizens in terms of, passing information, giving you guidance, and all that. We still continue to need it. I will also say that one is also improving. But the other element of intelligence you may be interested in, which I guess you are referring to, is the collaboration among the security agencies in terms of feeding intelligence to the operation. We will say that one lesson we have learned from this operation altogether is that our collaboration level has improved. Yes.
Governor, do you want to speak to this? This is now, there were holes earlier when you were talking.
First, sir, let me ask before I perhaps venture an opinion. What is the correct pronunciation? I've heard you called Olukolade. I've heard you called Olukolade.
My name is Olukolade.
Aha. So I wanted to be sure.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, and I've listened to all your briefings.
Had you both not met before?
I don't recall that we ever met.
Naturally,
before.
I will meet His Excellency, but on television.
But I've listened to all your briefings, and I understand also that when matters of intelligence need to be discussed, the interests of troops and men are not best served without the discipline to manage them. But I think what we need to know is factually and truthfully that we are in control of the situation, or we are not, or we are turning the corner, or we are just climbing the hill. This is important in order for Nigerians to have a clear measure of where their government is. And that would dimension the kind of support and the kind of response and the kind of anxiety that you also have to manage.
Sir, maybe the attitude to this challenge has also always been, initially I believe that the public was following, but one thing we seem not to understand generally is that battle situation is very fluid. Fluid in the sense that you may be holding this ground at this moment, in the next 10 minutes, that story is not true. You may be containing the situation properly as at this moment. In a few minutes, it changes. So your challenge has changed, that of reversing whatever grounds you have lost. Definitely, we lost some grounds within this year. For instance, I mentioned earlier
Last year, where have
Sorry, thank you. Last year. We definitely lost some ground, and that was in contrast to what it was at the beginning of that year. At the beginning of that year, the element of holding territories was not part of this challenge. The challenge was hit and run. They strike at villages, we keep pursuing them and trying to stop their activities. And I must also make it clear that the challenge here, which people have not been able to realize, is that the expanse of land that is covered by this operation is very, very large. And if I'm to say, for instance, maybe by rough calculation, we calculated that the area, Borno State alone, is about 98,000 square kilometers.
What's that in terms of, something?
98,000 square kilometers is about 20 times the size of Lagos.
That puts it in perspective.
Yeah, Lagos is roughly 4,000 square kilometers. Yeah,
now
22 times the size of Lagos.
If you put that in perspective, it may be bigger than Israel as a country. It could be bigger than many countries in the world, in and out of Africa. Now, I said 98,000 square kilometers. That's one state. Of the 3 states we have to cover under the state of emergency. You imagine a situation that, let's say we are deploying 1 soldier per square kilometer. That is, we will have, in Borno State alone, we will have to deploy 98,000 soldiers.
Oh dear.
So when people are wondering, why are you not there? Why are you not here? Why are you not? The reality is that that's not practicable. So what we will have been engaged in and what we are trying to improve regularly is to be mobile, to ensure that our activities are mobile. We can respond. We can deploy troops fast. For instance, we hear there is a challenge in social community. You just put troops in the helicopter and drop them there. It's not that they will have to be traveling by road. That's another element of challenge. So there is a challenge of terrain. There is a challenge of the expanse that this operation covers. There is even the challenge of the required manpower. I should cast your mind back to the fact that many of us will remember that there was a time in this country when the clamor was, what is the work of soldiers, by the way? Let's disband them. We don't need them. Let them go to the farm. Many of us here will remember those arguments. People felt, what are they doing for our country? Now, we really need them. But a soldier is not produced in 2 days.
But sir, I must interrupt you quickly then. Why then? Because if I didn't ask this question, it would be glaring. Why then are we court-martialing? Or what is that army time again? Why are we losing soldiers because of mutiny?
Thank you very much.
We need more of them.
Where we need more of them.
Yes, even if we need more of them, you need more of soldiers. What makes a soldier? Discipline. That's what differentiates a soldier from a civilian. Now, if you have a pack of 1 million indisciplined soldiers, you have a dangerous thing in your hand as a country. And that danger must be contained. There is no need to just have a body of men who cannot be controlled. When you talk of welfare, no, when people try to say it's about motivation, and they relate motivation to money, they relate motivation to allowances. I can challenge a civilian and say, okay, if it is money, let's give you 100 million. That is bullet. Go and face it. Will you face the bullet because of 1 million or so million of naira? So the real thing is the psyche of the soldier to be able to respond to directives. We know that there is bullet coming from that direction, but you have to go. And it will move.
Was that a training challenge, the training gap you spoke about? Because I know for sure you were part of ECOMOG.
Yes, I was.
Nigeria was recognized internationally for her role in stability across Africa. How is it that these same soldiers, or are they new soldiers, where is the gap?
It's good to recognize that, because I think it will also address some issues that are in the public space now. I want to tell you that nobody becomes a general without having some background. So when the generals of today are making demands, they have gone through situation. The ECOMOG you are referring to was conducted by people who by now have risen to the higher ranks. So when they are giving directives, they know why they are giving directives. They know what a soldier should be doing. They're doing it, they're giving their directives based on what they know is the capacity we have inculcated. So if for any reason you are not doing it, and you still want to be in this uniform, you must conform. You wanted to know where the gap is. The gap could be in maybe what is reflective in society. But we have a duty as the leadership of the military to correct it. And that's a duty to this nation. Because if you have a pack of mutinous soldiers, you are not safe. No politician is saved when you have a pack of soldiers whose business is to mutiny. And so we have a duty to reverse that trend.
Go on, Bondi. I can see you.
I just wanted my final contribution. Is it because I'm quite familiar with the Nigerian military? As far back as 2001, I used to visit them in Sierra Leone, in Port Loko, Mange, and all those places. And then later in Liberia. In fact, in Liberia, we were controlling 10 out of the 15 counties. I remember Brigadier General Olofin at that time was the commandant the last time I went. But what I saw in terms of facilities available to them, I don't think we have that in Nigeria. You might not be able to answer that, but I can tell you that it's something.
In fact, I think that you took the wind out of my sail, because you need to appreciate the enormity of the call of duty that men and women who sign up in our armed forces undertake. What they are saying, in effect, when they sign up for that career, is that whenever we are called upon, we will put down our own life in order to defend the fatherland. That is the commitment they make when they wear this uniform. But that commitment also comes with some level of expectation of their well-being. Because in the life of some soldiers, for example, they may have a 35, 30-year career without ever going to battle. And some, as we have found in the Ebola case, were nurses who on their first day at duty were dealing with Ebola. And during the period when there is no battle, what is the general makeup? What are the allowances? And that's the most pedestrian point from which to discuss this. What is their in-service training in peacetime? What is the status of their quarters? What is the status of their health and that of their family? I say this because my mother used to work in the army, and I know the quality of medical care that was available at Creek Hospital when Brigadier General Austin Peters and Dr. Pears were there. It was, and the Air Force Hospital at Onikon. Are they still comparable today? We now see military formations getting involved in non-core military activities, clearly trying to raise money. So, and I think we must quickly find the balance here. It's for me, this is a time to reinvent everything that is the military. And I will close here by perhaps referring you to the statement, I think it was General Saliu Ibrahim, if I remember him correctly, was former Chief of Army Staff, who raised an alarm about what was happening in the Nigerian Army at the time. And I'm not sure if we responded appropriately. But again, it is not just the Nigerian Armed Forces that we must focus on now. It is the general institutional capacity of our nation, and in that sense, ourselves. Because institutions are not mystical. Institutions are run by people. When NTA does well, it is a good team of men and women who have done well. When NTA drops the ball, it just means that the men and women in NTA didn't do their job. Right. And I think that that is the context for me. I don't know if you want to do this, but I will go back, because that was where I started, that what is the right definition of what we are dealing with? Now that I understand you to be describing it as terrorism, are we using the proper tools? Do you use the military to fight terrorism, or do you use the police force to fight terrorism? I say this in the context of the fact that if these people are Nigerians, do we send the Nigerian military against Nigerians? Is this global standard practice?
Right. I think that both gentlemen need to have a conversation. But because we have to round up this conversation, but I need to ask you an important question. Because I think that this conversation is a deep, important conversation. We can't even do it justice here. But I like the fact that we've started this. I'm praying and hoping that we will get all our capable men and women together on this case, regardless of our affiliations. However, what I want to ask, and if I didn't ask this, I will be slaughtered. Literally, I don't mean it. Are the girls coming home this year? How are they, or what is the situation? What? And back to what the governor was talking about, I think that Nigerians really want to support our military. I speak also for myself, that I want to support our military. Everybody I know wants to stand with our military. We need to know how we can help. Beyond those deeper, harder, perhaps intelligence conversations that need to be had.
Do I come from the last area of this issue?
Yes, please.
About the girls coming back this year. I must cast your mind back to the fact that since this incident, the entire nation feels embarrassed. Indeed, we too were concerned. And like I explained to certain people who came to agitate at the defense headquarters, many of the officers and soldiers also have their relations who, you know, were affected one way or the other, either by that particular incident or other elements of insurgency. So the impression that we are not concerned should be out of it. We are deeply concerned, and every effort is on. From that moment, we have explained that initially we deployed aircrafts to get involved in surveillance. Additional men were pushed to that area than it was before the mission. Additional formations were told to join up in it. The information capacity, I mean, intelligence gathering capacity was heightened. You even know that international community got involved, because initially the feeling was that the security agencies were not doing enough, and that perhaps when the others come in, a miracle will happen suddenly. Well, it has been since then. I mean, I want to tell you that nobody has given up hope. But the major concern, the priority in going for these guests is that whenever we have them back, we want to have them alive and well, bring them back intact.
Do you still have hope that we can bring them back?
We will still keep working on this hope. Okay,
I'm told that I have questions from the audience. That's 3 questions from the audience. Which is the first question? Yes? Yes? Yes?
Anyone with questions, please?
Mr. Hasro, go on. I think they have, yes.
I was going to ask the General, sir. You still have not been able to help us exactly what's going to happen to these girls and when they're coming home. I know it's very hard for you to say precisely in December or in January or as the case may be. But by now, sir, we all know with terrorists, most of these girls will have been raped. Most of them by now are maybe ready to have babies. What do we know about that?
Okay, so you are speaking to trauma, how to deal with post-traumatic, whatever.
Not just that, but what are we getting back?
I said, okay, please finish.
Arguing.
Are you true?
Yes, I'm raising a point. I think to ask the General that question, to ask the General that question is a little bit unfair. He doesn't know exactly where the girls are. He doesn't know the individual experiences they've had. So how is he going to know what shape the girls are going to be in when they come back? I don't think that's a question for them. I would think that what we should be saying is that we should be encouraging the government to do all they can to bring the girls back. Secondly, the Nigerian soldiers, some of these guys are 19, 20, 21-year-olds. And when we criticize the armed forces, we're actually demoralizing the people who are putting their lives at stake fighting for us. And so my own contribution is that whatever we do, we must isolate politicians and the physical soldiers in uniform out there. They are our brothers, they are our sons, they are our relatives fighting to defend our own interests.
Okay.
And we must do everything to support them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Substantially, he bailed me out. I wouldn't have said much differently. But one concern that we have at the moment, and that's where we'll possibly be calling for help, is that there's an impression out there which is really demoralizing. Demoralizing to particularly the leadership of the military. The impression that has been created out there to present the military hierarchy as callous, corrupt, and irresponsible. It's really demoralizing to those who are spending day and night looking for what is the best solution to this situation. I think we will rather be more encouraging to the whole setup when we endeavor to even give consideration. Fora such as this could be very helpful sometimes to allow us explain ourselves to the extent that it is within the limits of propriety, security, accuracy, and policy.
Right.
And when all of this come together, we will endeavor to ensure that Nigerians understand what is going on, which I think is what they clamor for quite often. The interest is to keep explaining. But when we try to explain, we're shouted down, which is what we seem to be seeing now. They shout down at every explanation coming from the military. They literally want to overwhelm us with the criticisms that are quite often not factual.
Okay. I mean, this is why this forum, we created it in the first instance, because I think that this challenge is too important to politicize, that everybody needs to get together and listen to one another and find solutions. I thank you for coming, Major General Olukolade.
Thank you.
Olukolade. Got it. I'm a Yoruba one, so I know that. Thank you for coming. I think that Nigerians support you. I would like to say that any opportunity we get to understand, because you coming here today has actually presented a completely different. The UIC on Twitter is different from the UIC here. You know, and we would really like to see the UIC here more often explaining these things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. It's a new day.